Sitting here with Coach Janet Rayfield. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened this summer. What were you up to this summer?
It was a great summer, actually, and the big part of it was a trip to Germany and scouting for the U.S. women's national team, during their run at the Women's World Cup. Wonderful experience in all sorts of ways.
Let's talk about your biggest memory there, or the thing that impressed you the most in that experience.
A lot of people have asked what was the best moment, and it's really hard to describe because in 24 days I saw 12 games, and I think it was the collective experience that sort of one of those memorable moments. Every stadium I was in, I think the smallest crowd I was a part of was 16,000 people watching women's soccer day after day. Some of the greatest things were seeing two 65-year-old German men walking into the stadium talking about the players that were getting ready to play and the game that was getting ready to go on. And I think when I saw that, I realized women's soccer has really turned a corner, not just here in the States in terms of acceptance, but in a country where soccer is the end-all, be-all, and was very much seen as a male sport. To see some 65-year-old men walking in and talking about, the new German stars getting ready to play, it just was so eye-opening as to how far the women's game has come.
Talk about some of the games that you scouted.
Probably the most exciting was Brazil was one of the teams I was sort of responsible for. So I saw all three of their first round games and really didn't expect to have to sort of provide my information until later on in the tournament. But when the U.S. lost to Sweden, it sort of meant I was on deck at that point. And so scouting the Brazil team and trying to give the U.S. staff as much information as I could about that team before they headed into the quarterfinal was definitely exciting. And Brazil is one of those teams, they don't get together like a lot of the other teams in the world. They don't have a lot of training camps. They don't quite have the resources that some of the other countries do. So every game they got a little bit better and a little bit different. So it was a really interesting scout to see them, not just to see them do what they do, but to see them improve and get better with each game, and then try to predict how that was going to continue from their last round robin game into the quarterfinal game.
What was going through your mind when the U.S. went into extra time?
Well, I think the first thought in my mind was when, we went down a player and I said, we didn't talk at all about what we would do against Brazil if we ever went down a man. That sort of wasn't one of the scenarios we discussed, and you discuss a lot of scenarios going into a game. But I think going into overtime, I was pretty apprehensive, but I think after the first 2 or 3 minutes, and everyone should know I watched that game on TV like everyone else. I had been scouting the France-England quarterfinal, so wasn't actually in the stadium watching the Brazil game. But the second the overtime started, and even down a player, we started to dominate. You sort of started to get this sense that we really were willing ourselves to win the game, and that's such a typical thing for the U.S. mentality, and you could see that mentality start to come out. And I think once you saw that mentality start to come out, you really felt like there was a sense of hope, at least.
Okay, let's move forward and focus on your own team, the team that you're in control of mostly, and talk about what did you take away from this international experience and applying to your team now?
I think we always watch our opponents and watch other games and see teams on TV and watch the English Premier League or whatever we can do and try to take the best from all those environments and see how you can incorporate those into your team. For me to see 12 games at the highest women's level in so many different systems and teams that had players that had different strengths. You look at the flair from Brazil and the discipline from England and Sweden and the collective organization of a team like Germany, the inspiration that a team like Japan played with. You take a little bit from each of those experiences and you try to bring those into your team. And our opening team meeting, I probably talked about the things I just talked about just then, is if we could play with the discipline of an England and a Sweden who are almost, maybe some would say, too rigid in their system, but their discipline is unbelievable. But you could play with the flair and the excitement that a team like Brazil plays with. And also even just the youthful naivety of a team like Equatorial Guinea or Australia, who talked to the Australian coach at one point during the tournament, and he said, my kids are so young, they don't know they're supposed to fear Marta. And so you have this fearlessness of a young team. And if we can incorporate all of those things, and those are sort of the intangibles, and then there's tangible things video that you say, you know what, Vanessa could play like this, or Jenna can defend like this, and you have role models and examples that you can bring to your players that they now can emulate in their own world in women's soccer at the highest level. You get to bring back some stars that they can emulate, and I think that's fantastic. And a lot of those will be American stars as well.